Don't you dare say that I wanted everything to fall apart when it's haunting me. 'Cause my only crime was hoping there is something more than this loneliness I feel. But no one makes me feel less alive. We're fighting fire. The way you push my buttons just right. We're fighting fire. When two voices of nature collide. We're fighting fire. Can't help but feel the temperature rise. We're fighting fire. We're fire. Maybe if we took a moment long enough to realize how alike we are.
Hey everyone, welcome back. We're looking at the final new melee from the new war update. Now, this one isn't tied to the quest, rather, it is crafted from researched Tenolab blueprints in the dojo. There are no spoilers in this video for the quest or lore, so you can watch it if you want. The Flash Step Venato is a sentient base scythe bearing the signature weapon of Caliban. Flavortext claims it was forged from the limb of a fallen eidolon, so this suggests for future content that Reb confirmed exists. Compared to other sites we now have available, this one doesn't appear that special, but that doesn't stop us from having a bit of fun now and then. There's also some really funny synergies going on here, you won't want to miss it. Now you probably also noticed the level of the enemies showcased in the intro. Yup. This is another level cap video. What better way to round out the set of new war weapons than yet another fancy schmancy upload? I had a ton of fun making the capture and intro for this. What do you think? This time we squatted up with Liam, Nightmare, and Tipa to pull off the level cap on Mars Disruption. You may notice the premise of this level cap video is similar to Nightmare's. That's because we actually did our Hokage Rhino and Flash Step Venato setups in the same run. What is Warframe if it isn't for the friends to have fun with? Sit back, relax, and let's begin the show. As the signature weapon of Caliban, Venato grants him 50% extra combo chance when in his hands, but we aren't using Caliban for this video, we're bringing NYX. Also, 50% extra combo chance is kinda useless on its own. We use Quickening because it pairs both stats together. 50% combo chance alone is nothing to write home about. For actual stats, it's alright. 27% crits and 24% status. If you compare it to the predecessor Grigori, it basically has more crit chance and less status. Though Grigori also had lackluster crit damage, none of this really matters though because both easily pass 100% crit and status at 12x combo. Although, Grigori actually passes even 200% status at 12x combo. What sets them apart is that Grigori has over 1.5 times more base damage and is over 50% slash weighted. Venato doesn't really have an answer, being heavily puncture weighted. Even if you add a 60% elemental progenitor to Grigori, it still has higher slash weight than Venato. And it also has a ridiculous glaive it can shoot out with 1200 base damage. That scales with mods normally and easily does millions to tens of millions of damage. And then you got the cost assist, which flings waves of acid and leaves trails, both of which blinds enemies and opens them to finishers and stealth damage instantly. And then you have Reaper Prime, the OG scythe, with ridiculous crit stats and 70% slash weight. Reaper remains the hardest hitting scythe for classic heavy swing and light swing action, but there is a way to equalize all of this. Scythes do forced slash on heavy attacks, so that's the route I took today for extreme damage, and pairing it with lightning speed teleports. Let's take a closer look. This is a generic light attack build. If you for some reason want to use the Venato as a regular scythe and spamming quick attacks, this is what it would look like. The first thing I'd point out is to use Reaping Spiral. Stalking Fan is unbelievably slow and cumbersome, while having less wide sweeps and doesn't deal with crowns well. Relatively, those Scythes still have decent attack speed, so Prime Fury alone and or stacked with Arcane Strike is enough if you're using the correct stance. You don't need to double up with Quickening, especially because Reaping Spiral is decently fast. Unfortunately, it does have some ragdoll habits, but it is still much better than Stalking Fan. The build is a typical setup, with Karness manable to fix the slash weight from 35% to 50.6 while also giving an extra status bump. If you don't have Karness, Buzzkill is also worth it on this weapon. Blood Rush and Weeping scale up the crits to 145.8% and status to 144. Organ Shatter scales up these crits, and Prime Smite lets us double dip those juicy slash bleeds. Primed Reach helps us hit out a bit further, even with 0.6 follow through. I do find it is personally worth it for a much better feel on the weapon. Primed Fury to make up for the somewhat slow Archetype, and Condition Overload to source all our base damage since we'll be using primers. Our primer today for this kind of normal gameplay is Kuva Nuke. Venato is not exactly a dynamic weapon. It doesn't fully root you in place, but the stance we have is somewhat slow, and still has subpar sweeping directional arcs. This means it cannot cut through crowds of enemies that quickly, meaning the question of Epitaph versus Nuke is easy to answer. The weapon also isn't heavily slash based and relies on the stance instead. It also has a lift effect from the stance that can get a little bit annoying in the combo. Basically, expect to spend a moment on enemies, hence AoE primers like Epitaph are wasted here. Nuke will concentrate procs onto close enemies better and make up for Venato's lack of KPS. This is the Nuke build I'm using. It's an impact Nuke, but a magnetic one would work as well. The only reason I had an impact one was the pre-proc slash with Hemorrhage, which is useful for one-shot setups, since it would be one extra status effect a magnetic Nuke can't have. But for sustained DPS like Venato, there isn't much a point in pre-procking slash, since you will rely on multiple slash procs from Venato as well as the raw damage to kill enemies. On a magnetic setup, you could drop both Hemorrhage and Sacks of Spittle for other mods. Say more status chance or fire rate. Regardless on if you pick impact or magnetic, you will still build for viral and whatever other elements you want, usually heat to reduce armor further and double SCC. I do have one Saxum here that I had it for slash weight reliability for Hemorrhage. You could drop it for Augur Pact if you want more Augur set bonus. Eject Magazine lets you holster reload the Nuke while you're meleeing. Combining this with 2 synth mods on your Panzer will make it reload 30% of the magazine per second. Basically, your Nuke magazine will never run empty. Secondary Dexterity is also here for the max rank bonus, granting us an extra 7.5 seconds combo duration to Venato. As this is a melee run, I've chosen to run Naramon so that we never fully decay our combo counter. This is actually featured on my level cap Venato setup today, as well as I opted for comfort instead of maximum DPS. Power Spike ensures that the combo counter only decays by 5 when it expires. It is a bit underwhelming, as I did say Scythes are not particularly good for light attack setups, and this Scythe isn't even slash weighted. Here are some level 160 corrupted heavy gunners. Showcase time? We spawn them in, prime them, and hack away. That's about it. Notice how the combo ragdolls though. Sometimes this causes subsequent swings to launch them away or in front. While funnying can also kill them when it throws them out of bounds, more often it results in them just being thrown away instead of dying. A nuisance, if you will. This is why I generally don't recommend using Scythes. On the other hand, they have pretty fantastic heavy attack setups. So let's look at the build I use in the level cap run, shall we? This is what I would like to call a heavy, lazy build. Why is it lazy? Because it isn't built for max DPS on the heavy attack. Rather, it's built for chill 12x heavy setups that is very low maintenance. We have Naramon Power Spike on this build, like I said, to make sure combo doesn't decay much. Perfect for disruption, where you aren't always in the midst of enemies shredding them apart. Sometimes you just want to speedrun key inserts. Therefore, we don't have Zenric for the Inner Might focus node that gives us 60% heavy efficiency. This is why the weapon itself has both Reflex Coil and Focus Energy modded on. Rather, the Electric is useful here as light CC and level cap to stun enemies and preventing them from hitting back, as any hit will instantly zero out your shields, and any hit against your health will instantly kill you, bar Martyr Symbiosis. Being a 90% heavy build that never really decays, this means we have 12x combo at all times and allows us to spam heavy attacks on the demo list. And this is similar to the principle I use in my Zephyr RUMBLEJACK video, except I actually have the build ready in advance this time. If you triple heavy, you get a 12x heavy, a 10x heavy, and a 9x heavy. So long as you actually land the hit, this is more than enough to annihilate level 9,999 dem lists. We don't need Weeping Wounds because the heavy attack is force slash. Prime Smite double dips the bleeds for 2.4 times more damage. Then we have Killing Blow and Amalgam Organ Shatter for faster windup. Technically, you will still swing nearly as fast with just Amalgam Organ Shatter and can slot Gladiator Might instead of Killing Blow for even more damage since we already have Condition Overload on the build. But again, I went for max quality of life. Prime Fury to swing the base weapon faster to build combo and initial heavy animation before the windup. CO, like I said, because, well, you're doing level cap. Don't tell me you're not going to use a primer. If you wanted a maximum DPS setup instead for your heavy attacks, you wouldn't run Focus Energy here. It would be Gladiator Might instead. You would also run Zeneric Inner Might with Reflex Coil for 90% efficiency, meaning it is possible to lose all combo if you can't find something to hit. Though one way to get around this is just to randomly heavy attack right before the combo counter expires, as this will drain some combo and reset the duration to max. Speaking of primers, things are a bit different in level cap. You have two ways you could go about this: an optimal primer setup to maximize your DPS against Demless immediately, or another CC tool that can prime Demless well enough. If you didn't notice, this video is all about fun and games and maximum comfort. So I took Epitaph. While it may not max out viral stacks as quickly against the Demless, it can theoretically prime better due to IPS, which the new core lacks, but requires prolonged setup. More importantly, it CCs out a massive area of enemies. Being on NYX, I could stack this with Chaos as well, and even Psychic Bolts have a small stun. Essentially, we have endless amounts of CC, and we were even in a 4-man squad on Mars Disruption. This is a 2 Augur Epitaph for the set bonus, with the rest of the mod set up for Radiation Viral. Then we fill up the rest with Multi-Shot and Fire Rate. The total amount of elements on the AoE was 4, Viral, Radiation Blast, and Force Cold procs. The build has 170% status, so I would expect it to proc all of them easily. The direct hit, which you will obviously hit Demless with, can also proc Impact, Puncture, and Slash. That's up to 7 different status effects for Condition Overload. Reflex Draw in case you pull out your other gun, and Secondary Dexterity for that extra combo duration as always. I've been talking about it for a bit, so let's see that NYX setup. Yeah, it's an Eclipse NYX, but what you may not have expected is the Total Eclipse Augment. This build uses all 4 abilities on her. Why? Well, you see, while DE tampered with armor and health scaling, they never tapered enemy DPS scaling. So the amount of damage level cap enemies do is near infinitely high. So high that they can kill each other through their armor. So high that when you stack Mind Control's new innate damage bonus based on how much you inflict on them, and Total Eclipse multiplying their damage even further, nothing can stand against them. Look at this Bombard go. While this definitely isn't viable survival, it's hilarious for disruption, since there isn't really a KPS requirement. Sadly, I was unable to get footage of an enemy shooting a Demless, but there is footage here of it killing an Acolyte. Truly a hilarious setup. This is also an extension of well-known lore for endurance runners. Spawning level 9999 Spectres are OP. They have ridiculous damage scaling, have acceptable AI. Kit them with Comb, Exorgist, or Archiplasmor, and they will wreck shop. Anyways, that explains the 1 and 4 on NYX's kit. The other vital part of her kit is Amar's Hatred. This gives a bit of extra strength, which is handy for reaching 100% strip on Psychic Bolts, but that only requires 125 strength. It does, however, continue to push Eclipse's damage buff further on this 183 strength build with Umbral Intensify and Augur Secrets. But most importantly, it has a Flash Step for its set bonus. This works just like Twin Basalk's Rift Strike, which instantly teleports you to enemies up to 25 meters away on a heavy attack. With just one Amar mod, it's only 10 meters though, but that is enough. This isn't just a gimmicky flashy anime attack. No, it has a true purpose in disruption. Demlists have a nullifying aura they pulse out every 5 seconds or so. It has a radius of roughly 6 meters. Amar's Hatred on heavy attack builds lets you set everything up outside of this radius, priming, buffing, and then when you need to wind up the attack, you can still stay outside of the radius until the very last moment the game teleports you over to the Demlist itself for the hits. This both speeds up the DPS cycle by not needing to close the gap, but also minimizes your time spent within the pulse radius, which could strip all of your buffs off. And because we're going slash DPS, we really want those buffs to work on our dots. This is why I call it the Flash Step Venato, and well, some of you probably recognize this name. Maybe I should call it Venato Shunpo instead. Yes, it's a Bleach reference. One of the greatest animes of all time. And you know what? The 1000 Year Blood War arc is actually getting animated next year in October. Are you ready for that? Because I know I am. What else is on this NYX build? Well, We have the usual brief respite and rolling guard with Prime Sure-Footed, the trinity of mods for shield gaining meta and endurance. This build has 270% energy to shield conversion, so your 2 and 3 will always do enough damage to regenerate all your shields in one go, while also CCing enemies at the same time. We don't even have Prime Flow in the setup, but with the team kill rate, I've chosen to rely on Equilibrium instead since the abilities aren't that expensive to cast. Combining this with a Panzer with Viral Quills and the Synth set makes sure I'll get plenty of health orbs, which I'll always be able to pick up. Actual energy orbs will also get fat, energized procs, and of course we tidy it up with Arcane Strike to make Venato swing even faster. Prime Continuity is all the duration we need. All of the abilities on NYX's kit have high base duration except Psychic Bolts, but you don't need super high duration for it regardless because you only cast Psychic Bolts when you're going to kill enemies, and then I threw in a little bit of range with Stretch. NYX's kit requires range, giving Chaos a near tile covering 36 meters on this build and 22 meters on your favorite Total Eclipse buff. As a reminder, this is the Panzer build I'm bringing. Why a Panzer? Because it lets me spread viral much more consistently than Epitaph, which excels at applying different status effects in a large area rather than maxing viral. It takes quite a few shots to do so normally, compared to Nuke. Panzer's Viral Quills also count as pet assists on any enemy it touches, which easily triggers Synth Deconstruct. This turns a 25% health orb chance from enemies into essentially a 25% drop rate from kills, since literally everything you kill will have Viral Quills on them. Synth Fiber lets you pick up health orbs even when full health, which feeds into Equilibrium like I said. Martyr is your last resort and prevents you from getting one shot at level cap when health is hit. It's essentially a mini health gate and has a cooldown of 30 seconds once it procs. Panzer Devolution gives your Panzer infinite lives, which will probably trigger each time Martyr procs at level cap. However, it is possible for your pet to die permanently for that mission like it happened for me. Pack Leader to heal our pet up with melee attacks. This is basically useless in endurance but useful in base steel path when enemies don't one-shot your cats. Tech Assault to help them dodge lethal hits, then the standard radar and vacuum. And that's it. Our Flash Step Venato level cap loadouts, or should I say Venato Shunpo. Built around max quality of life with still adequate DPS, I found it extremely fun to play. In fact, I actually enjoyed this loadout even more than the Zephyr RUMBLEJACK run from a few days earlier. The combination of massive CC, an extremely underrated frame, clever use of Eclipse beyond just haha big PP buff for myself, cheesy anime-esque executions, and getting to cap with some friends to stave off 3 hours of copium, definitely worth it. Also, who else can't wait for Bleach next year? Big ups if you're an OG that remembers the early days. I don't watch much anime myself, but this is one I can definitely get hyped up for because it reminds me of trying to get those early episodes on YouTube like 10, 15 years ago. Happy holidays and happy new year to you all. See you in 2022. If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get you new information out always, as soon as possible like I've done with covering all this new war stuff. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. I'm going to continue dropping tons more new war content in the future. You don't want to miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching and see you all next time.
Hey, dude. Wait,
What the fuck? You killed 192 Demolists. You didn't kill any Demolists, though.